Do you remember early 2020? I mean, how could we forget? The whole world just stopped. And overnight, classrooms everywhere went virtual. Now, for a hands-on field like hospitality, where so much of the learning is about actually doing things, this was a huge sink-or-swim experiment. But what actually made a difference for students? Well, one research paper dug into exactly that, and what they found is pretty fascinating.
So that's the big question, right? When you strip away the physical classroom, what's left? What are the key ingredients that make online learning actually work? We're going to treat this like a little detective case, using this paper as our guide to figure out what really mattered.
So where do we start? Well, in any good investigation, you got to line up the suspects. And the researchers behind this study identified 5 key factors, 5 suspects, that could have played a role in how much students felt they were learning. Let's meet the lineup.
First up, we've got the student-to-student connection. You know, all that stuff that happens between classmates. Did group projects, online discussion boards, or just being able to chat with your peers, did any of that actually help people feel like they were learning?
Next, you've got the guide, the instructor, and their role, absolutely massive, right? We're talking about getting clear feedback, being able to reach your teacher, and having lectures that actually keep you awake. How important was that connection when you couldn't just raise your hand in class?
All right, suspect number 3. This is the real meat and potatoes of the course. How good were the materials themselves? You know, were the readings useful? Were the assignments meaningful? How well did students actually connect with the stuff they were supposed to be studying?
And you can't forget the technology. I mean, this was the thing that made it all possible. Or impossible. Was the online platform smooth and easy to use, or was it a glitchy nightmare? The tech itself could have been a huge help or a major headache. And for our last suspect, we're going internal. We're talking about a student's own mindset, their self-efficacy. Basically, how confident were they that they could actually succeed in this new online world? Did that personal belief play a direct part in their learning? It's the psychological angle of this whole mystery. Okay, so we've got our lineup, 5 key suspects. But how did the researchers actually investigate this? Did they just guess? Nope. They went straight to the source, conducting a massive online survey with students all across India. And this wasn't just a handful of students. We're talking 461 of them filled out this detailed survey. That is a really solid sample size, which means the findings have some serious weight behind them.
So, who were these students? Let's paint a picture. We're looking at a big group of mostly young men studying hospitality, spread out across 12 different states in India. And they gathered all this data right in the thick of the pandemic. That context is super important to keep in mind. All right, this is it, the moment of truth. The lab results are in, the analysis is done. It is time for the verdict. Which of our 5 suspects were directly responsible for making students feel like they were learning? Well, the answer might surprise you.
And wow, the results are pretty stark. 4 of our suspects, guilty. All 4 types of interaction, with other students, with the teacher, with the content, and with the tech, all had a direct positive impact. But look at who walked. Self-efficacy, a student's own confidence, apparently had no direct effect. Wild, right?
And it gets even more interesting, because even among the factors that mattered, there was a clear kingpin. I mean, one of these things was not like the others. By a long shot, the single most powerful factor was the students' interaction with the course content. When it came to learning in lockdown, content was absolute king.
But wait a minute. Just when you think the case is closed, there's a twist. There's always a twist, right? Because even though self-efficacy wasn't a direct cause, it turns out it was playing this other really fascinating role behind the scenes.
Which just makes you wonder, so a student's confidence just didn't matter at all? That doesn't feel right, does it? Well, it turns out the real story is much more subtle than that.
See, it's more complicated. Its effect wasn't a straight line. Instead of directly causing the learning, a student's confidence acted as what's called a moderator. It didn't push the outcome itself, but it changed how strong the other factors were.
So, what on earth is a moderator? Think of it like a volume knob on a stereo. The knob doesn't create the music, right? But man, it can turn the music's impact way up or way down. That's what self-efficacy was doing here. It was controlling the volume of the other factors.
So, let's see how this volume knob worked. The researchers looked at the group of students who reported having low self-confidence, the ones who were already doubting their ability to succeed. And what they found for this group was a huge deal.
And here it is, the big reveal.
For those students who were already doubting themselves, having really strong, engaging course content wasn't just helpful, it was an absolute game changer. It had a much, much bigger positive effect on them than it did on their more confident classmates. In other words, great content can act as a powerful equalizer.
So after all that, what's the bottom line? What's the big lesson we can take away from this whole investigation as we sort of build the future of education?
Well, the lessons are crystal clear. First, yeah, all the interactions matter, but if you have to focus on one thing, make it the content. Content is king. Second, remember that great content is a lifeline for less confident students. It can literally change the game for them. And finally, even though confidence isn't a direct button you can push for learning, building it is still so important because it's the volume knob that can amplify everything else.
And all of this really leaves us with one big question to chew on. As we keep building this new world of learning, where do we put our energy? Into shinier, better technology, or into finding better ways to foster those fundamental human interactions? What this study seems to tell us is that maybe the answer isn't one or the other, but finding how the best tech can create the best connections to great ideas and to each other.